In this video, I'm going to talk about the common things I see wrong with a lot of the cybersecurity advice out there. And it might not be technically incorrect, but there's one factor that both the askers and the people answering don't always take into account. And that one thing is context. So stay tuned and we'll talk about that. Hi, my name is Jordan Schroeder, and I have had an interesting path to get to the CISO chair. And it is my desire to help 50,000 people find their way into the cybersecurity field and build a career that they love. There is a huge need for people in cybersecurity right now, even in 2020, even during lockdown. And the industry and the world needs people just like you to join, get good, and learn how to guide people and businesses to better protect themselves. So I'm on a lot of forums and I'm on a lot of different places, Security Stack Exchange, Quora, Reddit, and I see a lot of these questions that come up. And they're great questions and they're beginner questions and they make a lot of sense because the cybersecurity field is confusing. But the people that are answering, I find most of the time, are answering without taking some things into account. And context is the biggest thing. And I'm going to talk about these three things. And there's three parts to context that are really important, because if you follow their advice just as they say it, then you're going to end up lost a little bit if it doesn't apply to you, or it could create a lot of inefficiencies and you might create a very inefficient path for your career. So I want to talk about how we can unpack some of that information you get and how to learn from it, even though it might not exactly apply to you. So I want to talk about three things. First, not all advice applies to all cybersecurity roles. Now, I have a video on the 52 different cybersecurity roles there are, and I've got a link up there in the corner. And it's important to know that when people are answering, they're usually talking about the role that they have. That might be a penetration tester, that might be an ethical hacker, that might be a SOC analyst, a security operation analyst. And that's pretty common. But that's not all of them. There's 52 different roles, and when you ask, how do I get into cybersecurity, people will normally answer, this is how I got into cybersecurity to get the role that I have right now. So it is important for you to know what role they are talking about and what role you are talking about and what you want to reach for. And to help with that, if you look at that video that I posted, the video I did before, get an understanding as to what role we are talking about. What role is relevant to you so you can start unpacking the advice and start listening to it in different ways. Point number 2, not all advice works internationally. I have worked in Canada, US, and the UK, and the work environment and the cybersecurity environment is very different between those three. It's not worlds apart, but it's very, very different. And what works in one country isn't going to work in another. For instance, in Canada, does a degree matter? No, not really. Does having a degree in cybersecurity matter? No. Does it have benefits? Yes, and I'll have a video all on that. But in the UK, having a degree is paramount. You have to have a degree, mostly because, especially in Scotland, the degrees, if you're a Scottish resident, you can get a degree for free. It's tuition free, mostly. And it's subsidized in England. So by not having a degree, that creates a lot of barriers. But that's regional. I know in India it's very different. I also know in Germany it's very different. So the advice that you get is going to be relevant to the country and the experience of the person who is answering that. And you might be in a completely different place. You might have a completely different business culture that is going to apply to you in how you find and apply and grow your career from where you are. So keep that in mind and make sure that you are getting advice that's relevant to the country you are in or the country that you want to work in. Hey, if you are enjoying this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and at the end of the video, there's a fourth bonus point that I'm going to talk about when you're talking to people giving you advice. Point number 3, not all advice applies to all industries. And I'm not just talking military or defense. I'm talking about heavily regulated industries where cybersecurity is also regulated. If you're in one of these, finance is one, banking and finance is one. You have a lot of things that you need to be able to do and a lot of things you need to know in order to even start working in cybersecurity in these industries. Whereas if you're working in a software development company or a tech startup or software as a service where you're not dealing with heavy regulations, then the advice is very, very different. How to get in is very different. The attitudes, the things that are important, the things you need to value are different. So when you are getting this advice, make sure you're also understanding from the answerer what industries they're talking about, what their experience is, and whether or not their advice applies based on a particular industry. The fourth bonus point that I have is about what to do when you are asking these questions. Now, one of the things I am very big on, and I will advise everyone to do, and I'll have a video on it, is doing informational interviews. This is where you sit down with somebody who is working in a company that you would like to work in and in a position that you would like to work in down the line. Not your next role, not the thing you want to apply to next, but the future. And so you do these informational interviews so that you can get information from them to help you craft. No matter who you ask, no matter who you do these informational interviews with, they are also going to be affected by these three things. You are in an informational interview to get targeted information, and that's good, and you want really highly contextualized information. But it'll also help if you can get this broader view, and you can encourage that broader view from the person you are talking with by asking these clarifying questions about whether it's for every job or what jobs the advice applies to, what regions it might apply to, whether different business cultures might have a difference, and then whether or not this information applies to all industries, all companies, big companies, small companies, regulated industries, or something like that, and get that information from them and get more generalized advice. If you want to grow your career in cybersecurity, start by hitting the subscribe button and the bell, hit the like, so that you can get notified when the next video comes out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.